also we have in the O.T.A, we have developed over the years a system of tantric yoga which relates to and is completely compatible with the Kabbalah. And what we have is a line of psychic centers or chakras that are a development of the middle pillar exercise for those of you that are familiar with it, but it's the whole set of chakras. And this whole set of chakras enables you to access from within yourself and in your own psyche, access and open and have a relationship, a deep relationship with the spheres of the tree of life. And this way we have gained, I believe, because I spent at least a year and a half with intensive study with the Sakya Tibetan order, and I learned how they do these magical techniques of theirs, and their techniques depend upon the use of internal psychic centers. This is the power of the East that we haven't had in Hermetic magic, because up until recently, people couldn't figure out how to get the Kabbalah to dovetail with the Hindu psychic centers. Well, actually, the Tibetan psychic centers are different than the Hindu, and in fact, each Tibetan deity has a different set of chakras, and so actually coming up with a Kabbalistic chakra system was not as difficult as it might have been, except that, unfortunately, we here in the West believed that there was only one Eastern system, and our Kabbalah just didn't match up with it, so we didn't do anything with it. And, of course, I should admit that actually Paul Case had a system where he was more concerned with the paths of the tree of life than he was the spheres, and it places the planets in an order that does not follow the sequence of the tree of life. So it's difficult to use it in ceremonial work, and it's a good meditational system, I suppose, from an alchemical point. But actually, what we have in the O.T.A is the straight line right down the lightning flash all the way down. We can bring power down from Tippereth. We bring the power straight on down and then bring it straight back up. And it's a very dynamic system, and you can do it in just a few minutes, and you can have yourself tremendously empowered, and you can, it's one of the most powerful things and techniques we have. And actually, you get right down to it. You want to ask, probably, and you'd be asking, what is the purpose of all of this? Why are we doing all of this? What do we get out of it? Well, the answer to that is that what we get out of it is to make ourselves more than human, in a sense that the magician strives to become more and more and more godlike. He strives to become more and more of the creator, more and more the master of the symbolic universe. And in this way, he brings himself or herself closer and closer to God. Now, do we do this so we can control other people and so we can make money and so we can have power? No, not really. If that's what you want to go into magic for, well, you probably ought to go into something else, really. Maybe you might be better off in witchcraft or somewhere else on that. Magic, even though it is a tremendous power trip, if you want to use that term, but it's a power trip for your own development. It's a power trip to get you closer to God. It extends your consciousness out to reach the whole universe. Now, for instance, we believe that we are a miniature of the universe, and if you want to think of yourself, let me give a little example of how to grasp this whole thing. If we take Hermetic philosophy and try to get our arms around it, we realize that if you are the eyes and ears of God, then this means that you're directly connected to the central mind of God, so to speak. Now realize how vast this is. There's millions, not just millions of stars, there are millions of galaxies. This universe is so big that it's almost impossible to imagine how big it is. But it's all a part of God. God has these consciousness points like ourselves, with eyes and ears, all over the universe. And a lot of these consciousness points are obviously a lot smarter than we are. They're a lot more advanced. They're vast. They're godlike beyond us. And then, of course, maybe below us, there might be some consciousness points we don't know about, like maybe the dolphins are consciousness points. I don't know. I used to train dolphins for a short time, and I really don't think they are. But we're pretty low on the consciousness point of God's scale, obviously, from the vastness of the universe. And yet we are. We are consciousness points of God. Each one of us is. Which means that each one of us, if we realize this, we are directly connected to God. Now, if you carry this a little further, you realize that you're at the center of the universe. Even though your eyes and ears are out on a stalk, you're still at the consciousness point is God. You're at the center of the universe right there. So once you realize this and that you grok it, so to speak, I mean, then at this point you say, well, I'd like to experience controlling this whole universe. And so the best way to do that is to build it inside you, is to build up this little universe inside you, and use that to expand your consciousness so you can get the effect of being one with God. And you know, this has got to create, on the one hand, a huge ego, and on the other hand, it's got to, if you really think about it, you're going to have vast humility, because you realize just how tiny you are and how small this planet is, and how are this little galaxy all the way over in the corner of the rest of the universe. And so we have to realize, we have to be humble, and we also have to realize that even though while we're humble, we're still, in our tiny little way, we're still part of God. We're still right there. We're right there as one of God's intelligent sensors. And this is one of the things in Hermetic philosophy that Hermes teaches. He says that our purpose here on earth is to be the witness, is to witness God's creation. This is our purpose. We're here. We're His eyes and ears. Now, Jacob Boehm, the Christian mystic in the Renaissance in Germany, he understood this very, very well, and he based his philosophy on the Hermetic treatises. And this idea that we are the eyes and the ears of God, and that God is within us. Once you grasp this, you also realize another very, very important thing. You realize that you are immortal, because you yourself are the consciousness. Nobody else is. You're the consciousness. And you know that those other people are consciousnesses too. You're aware of that. You know your friend and your wife and your brother and everybody, and including the taxi driver and the guy in the hamburger joint, all the rest of them. They all have just as much God in them as you do, and they all have this potential, but only you. And this is the big thing. Only you are the consciousness point. You're the one that is looking at the world through your eyes. You're the one that's hearing the world through your ears. You're the one that's experiencing, feeling, whatever. The rest of them are you assume they're doing that, and they are, but you're the one. So therefore, you can't die. You're immortal because you're the consciousness point, and God's got to have consciousness points, and so you're going to go on. So then, the big purpose of Magick is let's recover some of these. Let's find out where we've been, and let's find out where we're going. Let's take control of this process. And God will let us do that. God will let us do anything we want because we're part of His creative process. And this is the wonderful thing about Magick is this idea that we're going to become more than just somebody that just gets kicked around by the winds of chance and doesn't know who we are and doesn't know. This is what Hermes means when he says that you have to realize why you're here and what you're here for. And that's what Hermes says. This is why you're here. This is what you're here for. And do it. And find the one thing and do it. And Crowley said that. I'm completely follower. In fact, I'm not a follower of Crowley at all. But I think Crowley said some good things. And one of the things he said was, find your true will and do it. And he was absolutely right about that. And of course, Curly and City Slickers said, find the one thing and do it. And that's another version of it. But anyway, the idea is you are you. You are very, very special. Even though I'm very special, and the lovely lady I'm sitting next to is also very, very special. But you who are looking out through your eyes and listening through your ears, you are God. And when you realize that, and what will help you realize it? You may not realize it listening to me. You may think I'm a nut, but I tell you, if you study this and work with this long enough, you will realize this. And when you do realize it, it's one of the most precious treasures you can possibly have. This is what we refer to as enlightenment, and it isn't something that should make you feel superior to anybody else. It's just that, hey, I know, I wish the heck they knew. And this is, in a way, this is what Jesus was trying to do. He's trying to tell people pretty much the same thing. And this is why, as I say, we have nothing against Christianity or nothing against Buddhism. It's just that they don't. Some of the not Buddha and Jesus necessarily, but some of the Christians and the Buddhist clergy don't quite tell you all of what maybe they ought to tell you. In the case of Buddha, everything was kind of negative because poor Buddha looked over the wall and he saw how much suffering there was, and so he said, "Oh, this is all illusion." Well, here in the West and with Hermetic philosophy, we look over the wall and we say, "Hey, everything is reality, especially what you can imagine." Now, Magick is the path, the royal art, and the path of those who wish to be more than human. But at the same time, you've got to have sympathy and compassion for the rest of the human race and you have to be able to identify with them because they are all in the same situation you're in, even though they don't know it. So consequently, the key to being more than human is being more than one human. And that is something I'll leave you to meditate on. Anyway, we're just about out of time. And so I'm going to just go over here. I was mentioning this earlier that what we did in technical writing was we said, okay, we're going to tell you what we're going to tell you, and then we're going to tell you, and then we're going to tell you what we told you. So in this broadcast, we introduced Hermetic science and the history of Hermetic science, and we talked about the aspects of astrology and Kabbalah and alchemy that were related to Hermetic science and came from it. And we discussed the differences between magic and witchcraft and Satanism, which we have no relationship to. And then we discussed the Principles of invocation, that's calling down the angels, and evocation, calling up the spirits using the crystal and the dark mirror. And we describe the inner workings of the magical visionary process.